Welcome to episode 2 of You're Worth Knowing. I actually asked AI to help me out with a title for this episode, and I have to say that it's more creative than I thought it would be because some of the things that it spits out are just so boring, but some of these titles are just hilarious. So, for example, it told me that maybe I should title this as "The Day I Beat My Fear of Rejection and Practically Ripped a Girl's Earrings Off." Like, what? Who says ripping a girl's earrings off? I think that's just bonkers. And then there was another one that said, "I went up to a stranger for sunscreen and it was awkward AF." Now, I actually considered using that title because it made me giggle and it's totally clickbait. But I went along with the boring status quo of why you're scared of asking a stranger for sunscreen because it really explains what this is about.
Welcome to the You're Worth Knowing podcast. I'm your host, Roxana Alexandru from Honest Rocks, and I am obsessed with social anxiety. After a decade of trying to figure out how to manage it on my own, I'm on a mission now to share every little insight I've gained along the way. Every week, we'll get just a little bit closer to unraveling the mystery of it so you can live the best version of yourself. Because you are worth knowing. Let's get to it.
So in this part 1 episode, aren't you excited that there's going to be another part to this craziness? We will be discussing why we're so worried about asking a stranger for sunscreen. And yes, it's quite specific. I am using sunscreen because this is exactly what happened. But you can again, use any other word that you want. Kleenex, I don't know, a pen, whatever it is that you want to ask a stranger for. But the idea for this episode came along right after I posted a video on TikTok that went viral.
This is a live example of what social confidence looks like. This is Joanna. Joanna needs sunscreen. She needs to find someone that's already applying it so she can swoop in and ask for it. She's looking around, ready to go. She spotted somebody. She's making her way over, ready to ask for the sunscreen. Let's see what happens. She's asking for it, and she even makes small talk in the process. This is a beautiful example of what it looks like to ask for something you want and getting it.
I honestly didn't understand the commotion at first. But after a few months of really pondering and thinking about it, I finally understand why it got people's attention. If I tell you to ask a stranger for sunscreen, what is your reaction? If you're anything like me, you'll cringe and tell me to go off myself. You might use the words crazy, insane, out of your mind to describe the idea of it, and I don't blame you for having such a visceral reaction to this request. I like to think that most people would choose to burn or hide in the shade the entire day rather than ask a stranger for sunscreen. Now, you're going to have to prove me wrong on that one, so I would love to hear what your reaction is to this question and request. Because, who does that, right? My best friend, Joanna. That's who. So in this video, I'm documenting her as she prepares to ask a stranger for sunscreen. Now, I knew I had to turn the camera on because the idea just seemed preposterous to me. Like, never in my entire life would that thought come to mind. Like, we looked around for stores. There was nothing around. Either I would have left or just burned or hung out in the shade. So in part 2 of this episode, we are actually going to sit down with her and ask her, how dare you? Because it is fascinating to go behind the scenes and truly get an understanding and perspective of the person that's capable of doing something like this, right? Because truthfully, how often do you find yourself in a situation where you must ask for sunscreen? So again, if you're anything like me, it's probably never, because you'd rather burn or hide in the shade than dare ask a random stranger for sunscreen out of all things. Honestly, that was the most prevalent comment in the video. So if you scroll through the comments on this TikTok video, you will laugh your butt off, but you'll notice that most people will want to burn. Other comments on this video include, how rude, irresponsible, and selfish she is for asking because, no one is allowed to forget something at home or express a need they have. Oh my goodness, how dare she? But here are some of the comments that I really found hilarious. I'd rather die of skin cancer. I could get a sunburn, but I could never do this. I'd rather turn into a lobster. And this one really got to me because this is what I would have done a long time ago, my old version of me. This person said, I would sit down and burn in silence and would stay at the beach long enough because I would be so self-conscious of people seeing me leave just after I arrived. So this comment is a loaded one, and there's so much to break down, but it's going to have to stay for another episode. So the interesting part about this video and me documenting it like it's on National Geographic, other than the fact that 1.4 million people are walking around having seen it. Like my mind just can't wrap itself around that. It offers us the biggest life lesson of all, which is this. If we ask, we get. She asked, she got. Pure and simple. Now, if I could pinpoint why it's gotten so much attention and discussion, well, it's because people either fall into two buckets. The first bucket being that they wish they could be like her, because let's face it, there's no hint of social anxiety in her body. The second bucket is that it's such a normal thing to do. It's weird. Some people think it's impressive. And these two sides, these two buckets battled in the comments. You have to go read them. Now, depending on which side you're on, you think the other side is crazy. So let me demonstrate what I mean by that. I'm going to share a few opposing comments, okay? So this is bucket one, where people think it's not a big deal. Are you guys for real? Are we seriously that scared of each other? Oh, wow, she did a basic thing. How impressive. Honestly, being super socially confident, it makes me sad others can't just talk to strangers. How do you people survive if you don't ask for help when you need it? All right, so that was bucket one. And this is what bucket two sounds like, where people wish they could be more like her. This is a beautiful example of what I cannot do. She deserves the presidency. Some people are lucky and they don't even know. Maybe normal for her, but not for us. Try to think about which bucket you would find yourself in. Which one of these comments do you relate with the most? And it's really interesting to really look at it from that perspective. So let's get into the meat of this episode because, yeah, it's great to talk about the video and the comments. It's fun to do that. But why is it so hard for us to ask a stranger for something, right? So substitute sunscreen for any other word, any other item, whatever request you have. Why is it so hard? Now, if you're like most people, you've been in a situation where you could have used some sunscreen or a pen, maybe at the airport, when you have to fill out the health forms, but you didn't ask for it. And there are really three reasons why. So the first reason, and this is the most obvious one, is social rejection. No one wants to feel like a burden or be rejected by a stranger. And that's exactly the risk you take when you ask someone for something. You're putting yourself out there and risking being told no or ignored completely. We're afraid of being rejected by the person we asked for sunscreen or making them uncomfortable. Now, here are some comments that reflect this reason from the video again. I wouldn't give her any, just so that she knows how being rejected feels like and that she has to wonder all day why I rejected her. In my mind right now, yeah, but what if they say no? And then you'll be embarrassed in front of everyone and they are all going to judge you? I think that is the main reason that we are terrified of asking people for something. I think that entire comment encapsulates the whole experience. Now, the second reason why we're scared is because of approach anxiety. Now, approach anxiety, we've all been there. You're at the beach or anywhere else, any other crowded area. There's a lot of people around and you need something, but you don't know who to approach. Is it okay if you ask this person? What about the other one? What if they say no? What if they think I'm weird? We're afraid of that the person is going to reject us because of how we approach them or any stereotype bias that they might have of us. And there are some comments that reflect this as well in the video. Here are a few of them. It's also an example of the privilege a thin, conventionally beautiful white woman holds. Now, in episode 2, we're actually going to talk about this comment because it's loaded and it's interesting because Joanna is not white. So what does that mean about people that think about this, right? Another comment, try it if you aren't a white person. Good luck. Again, same lines. And then the last one, my social anxiety could never, even if they offered first, because I'm always worried about burdening people with my problems, it would feel like stealing. Whew, that's also very heavy. And again, we will discuss all of these in part 2, all of these comments. But the third and last reason why we're scared to ask strangers for things is maybe because of social norms. We're afraid that people will judge us for asking for sunscreen in the first place and make us feel bad about ourselves for doing it. This varies among cultures, of course, and how such a request would be seen as. While you might be able to do it in one place, you won't have the same nerve in another because of the perception it comes with. Here are some comments that reflect that. Wow, extroverts are very weird, but maybe it's an American thing because I can't imagine anyone doing this in my country. Some people come prepared with everything they need, and others are parasites. Now, reading these comments and hearing them gives you an idea of what goes on in people's minds and the list of thoughts that they go through to decide whether or not you're game to ask a stranger for something. The truth is that whatever bucket you fall into, either wishing you were more like Joanna or that this is an easy thing to do, there's a lot to break down and dissect on each side. For example, why is it so easy for some and not for others? Why does one believe it's rude to ask while someone else might cheer her on? Why do some share but others don't? Why do some want to punish her and others wish they were more like her? Now the list continues, making this particular video so fascinating to discuss. And what better way to discuss more of this than to bring in the woman behind it all so she can walk us through step by step what she was thinking about and why it's so darn easy for her to do something like this on a daily basis. So you're going to have to stay tuned for part 2, where I get to interview Joanna, the sunscreen girl. And just so you know, as a background as to why this happened, because I got a lot of comments asking, well, why wasn't she prepared? Why didn't she have sunscreen? Why is the person filming her, me, not giving her sunscreen? So here, I'll be honest. I have a mommy brain. I have 2 kids. I was rushing to get out of the house that morning. I put sunscreen on the whole family. So I got that done. Woohoo. So I checked it off in my mind and I put the sunscreen back. I didn't think about, packing it up and taking it with us. So unfortunately, I was not prepared. Okay. And yes, I have the excuse that I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old and things just are chaos all the time and I'm in survival mode. But we agreed that we would pick her up at the train station. So I'm based in Amsterdam and she lives in Germany, about 3 hours away. So she took the train and she landed at the train station where we picked her up. Now, when she comes to see us, it's for a day or two. And usually she doesn't pack almost anything because I'm always the one that has everything ready to go and she uses whatever she needs at my place. Unfortunately, she probably expected that being that I'm a mom with 2 kids, she's not, I would have sunscreen with me because duh, we're going to the beach. So that's the backstory as to why she ended up being in the position that she had to ask someone for sunscreen. And I didn't offer this explanation in the video because, again, it's just, we don't need to always add a reason, an excuse, right? Things can just be as they are. You can enjoy the video, you can laugh at it, you can be shocked, whatever reaction you have, without being angry that this person doesn't have sunscreen for whatever reason, right? It could have been anything else. Maybe she lost it. Maybe somebody stole her bag, whatever the case may be. I just did not understand why people were upset that she did not have sunscreen with her. And I felt attacked because I thought, well, it's my fault. Their anger is pointed at me, rightfully so. But really, I'm allowed to make a mistake. You're allowed to make a mistake. Things happen, things get forgotten. It's okay. And unfortunately, at this beach, there are no stores. There was no possibility to purchase a sunscreen because obviously that would have been the more reasonable and rational decision to make. But such is life. And now we have an amazing video we can talk about. And it went viral. And yeah, I hope you're enjoying it because I've been really had my mind blown about this video. So now that we have an understanding of why it's difficult for us to ask a stranger for an item or for something for help, let's talk to Joanna to have a better understanding and potentially a mini tutorial on how she goes about doing this type of stuff in her life. Because let me tell you, after knowing her for 26 years, this is not even close to being the craziest thing that she's done. And trust me, she's so extroverted. She has no social anxiety in her body that you would be shocked at the things that she's capable of doing. So I'm excited to bring her on and to chit chat with her. So you're gonna have to stick around for part 2. See you next time.